Down here, close the door. Okay, councillors, please stand. Welcome, councillors, members of the executive, members of the press gallery, and members of the public joining us via live stream. This is our first meeting, first hybrid meeting, so bear with us as we work our way through it. Swan Hill Rural City Council acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet and pays its respects to their elders, past and present. Councillor King, the prayer, please.
It beseech you, Lord, that we may be granted wisdom, understanding, and sincerity of purpose in the decisions we are called on to make for the welfare of the people of the rural city of Swan Hill.
Amen. Please be seated. Apologies. We have apologies from Councillor Chris Jeffrey and Councillors Les McPhee. Directors and officers present. Sorry. Can I have a move of those apologies be received? Please move, Councillor King, second Councillor Bennett. All those in favour? Carried. Directors, officers present. We have Mr. Alan Morris as an officer, and attending virtually Mr. Joel Leslie and Mr. John McLeod. Do we have any disclosures of conflict of interest, councillors? We have none. On to section B, reports. Community item B, 21.97, Community Vision and Council Plan 2021 to 2025. Review, hear and consider submissions. Mr. Leslie, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. According to the Local Government Act, it requires the council to prepare and adopt a council plan by the 31st of October in the year following the general election. During June, July and August of 2021, Swan Hill Rural City Council undertook a community engagement program to develop the Swan Hill Rural City Council community vision and plan for the years 2021 to 2025 through our deliberative engagement processes. Following the consultation, a draft was developed and publicly advertised for submissions in accordance with the Council's community engagement guidelines. This allows for Council to formally receive, hear and consider all submissions. As at the 18th of October, when this report was drafted for Council, there were 5 submissions were received, with no submitters requested to speak to their submission. Subsequent to that date, we have received 8 further submissions and one member of the public wishes to speak to that meeting. Furthermore, I'll get Helen to go through these submissions for you on an individual basis.
Thank you. So as Giles alluded, we did receive 13 submissions in total, and I will run through each of the submissions. I will make note that we don't believe that the submitter that requested to speak to the submission is going to attend at this point in time. So out of the 13 submissions, the first one was why ask for feedback when you don't listen? You're all a waste of time and space, self-centered, egotistical, so-and-sos. Council, or the officer's response to that was that the submitter's making a statement, it's their opinion, and there's no change required to the actual documents, being both the council, the community vision or the council plan. Submitted to believes that council have really set the pace over the last 5 to 10 years. One point I'd like to raise and have as many conversations with peers is the development of concrete walking paths around Swan Hill. Walking and running paths, sorry. This needs to continue with many additional areas added and upgraded. Thanks for allowing me the opportunity to voice this. Officer's response is that as part of the Strategic Initiative 1.2.2, accessible open spaces and healthy rivers and lakes, consider it walking paths and bike tracks. Submission number 3 was never read such BS. Again, another personal statement made and no change required to the documents. Submission 4 was in relation to the public health and wellbeing plan. They allude to the fact that the map only includes Robinvale and Swan Hill and not all towns, and they weren't sure about the correlation of the data between teenage births, vulnerable children and family violence, and could the stats also include gender equity instead. The Women's made a suggestion that the Victorian Women's Health Atlas has some data on gender equity and crime stats agencies, also have updated family violence data for 2021. And also a comment about the lovely document overall to look at with all the colourful and localised images. The officer's response to that submitted was due to the space available, the size of the imaging and the space of the text on the map. we did opt just to list Robinvale and Swan Hill and also list the smaller towns to the left-hand side of the page. We noted that the statistics have already been reviewed with the Department of Health, but we will also look at expanding those statistics in the first review of the council plan, which will be in 12 months' time, with the view to include further gender statistics into the document. Submission number 5 was in relation to the drag strip project, fix the drag strip project. Council ruined with the lack of knowledge and cost cutting and won't fix. Millions have been spent with millions required to repair, but while it's not fixed, it provides zero return on dollars. Officer's response to submission 5 was that in the May of 2021, the council meeting, council passed a motion not to proceed with the development of a feasibility study for the new drag strip facility unless funding becomes available. No further works will be carried out. And then submission number 6 is in relation to rail trails and bike paths, so that they just returned from Warburton where they'd ridden the Warburton to the Yarra Glen rail trail. They then spoke about they took another trip to Geelong and did the Geelong to Queenscliff rail trail and the amount of people that were actually using these rail trails, and suggested that Swan Hill do need to consider having some sort of trail between Swan Hill and Lake Boga, which could bring money into our communities. They also mentioned conversations they've had with many businesses in relation to those rail trails they've been in and the amount of business that does or has increased in the time since the rail trails have been available. Officer's response to submission number 6 was that that strategic initiative 1.2.2 that I mentioned before is taking into consideration open spaces, healthy rivers and lakes, and to consider walking and bike paths. Submission number 7 right through to submission number 13 were all requests to fix the drag strip, and our officer's response to submission 7 right through to 13 is the same as submission 5 in May of 2021. Council passed a motion not to proceed with the development of a feasibility study for the new drag strip unless funding becomes available. So that was the end of the submissions from the public. We are suggesting that council consider these submissions and then choose to adopt or amend the community vision and the council plan. As a result of that, the recommendation is that you consider the issues that are raised in the submission and the officer's responses, having considered the submissions and not make any changes to the council plan, and adopt the plan as presented, and then write to each submitted thanking them for their submissions and outlining council's response.
Questions, councillors? Yes, Councillor Ben.
From here, thank you, Mr. Mayor. From here, talking about the rail trails, the biking track and the active trail between Swan Hill and Lake Boga, first of all, is that part of the major projects plan?
Yes.
Yes. So then taking on, so that's an active trail, maybe not a rail trail as the Warburton trail, and they are all over Victoria, and I've ridden and run many of them, and they are fantastic. If we wanted to get a rail trail project from Robinvale to Lake Boga and stopping at all the little towns in between, what's the process now to get those onto the get that type of thing onto the 10-year major projects plan?
I'll hand that back to Joel. Mr. Mayor.
We're currently going through readdressing the 10-year major projects plan now, to the view to bring back to council probably in November or December for your review and for you to either comment on what's in there or suggest changes to add new items into that. So that would be the process required to add new items into there.
Terrific. Thank you.
Any further questions, councillors? Yes.
I guess just a follow-up question on that was, just because something's not specifically outlined in the council plan, does that mean that it's specifically excluded from the major projects plan? So following on from what Councillor Bennett just said, I mean, that specific project is not in the council plan. However, it probably comes under some sort of active lifestyle category. So then can it be considered when we get to our 10-year major projects plan?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, all all items not in there can be discussed for addition in there under the council guidelines. So you can all bring new items to the 10-year council plan discussion, and it will ultimately go for public consultation and come back to the council for a decision on whether they're included or not.
Yeah, so just a further comment, not so much a question. I think given there was, 12 submissions,
13.
13 submissions, and half of them relate to the drag strip, I'd just like to note that clearly there's passion in the community to do something with the drag strip, and I would hope that other councillors take note of the passion that the community has as we consider projects for the municipality going forward.
Councillor.
Just a question for Joel or Helen. I think we've acknowledged generally that our consultation process was impeded very much by COVID restrictions, and just confirming that we do have a commitment to look thoroughly at our council plan next year as well. Just to, as Councillor King and Councillor Benham have discussed, there are various issues that are very important to the community, and the council plan is sort of an overall visionistic, but a lot of things can be included within it. Is that correct?
Yes, so we have a commitment to review the plan in 12 months' time.
Yeah.
Each
year.
Actually.
But I think that verbally in our meetings, the
Yeah.
the officers have acknowledged that we're very impacted by not having to have fuller meetings,
Yeah,
and that we're committed to engaging with the smaller communities and the larger communities, Swan Hill and Robin Vale, to make sure that this council plan does sit within a 10-year vision that we're all comfortable with, and that can hopefully lead us to a happy and healthy future.
yes.
Yes, Councillor.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a statement. It's probably not a question, really. It's a statement just about the drag strip, just going on from what Councillor Stewart said. Is that, yeah, I think it's pretty important. Like a lot of people are virtually saying in there that we're not going to do anything with the drag strip. And that's not really right, because what we're saying is we're just going to wait to do the feasibility study until the funding comes available. So we need to sort of, I think, push that point that it's not a dead duck at all. It's still looking at happening if we can get this feasibility study funding.
I'll move as per the recommendations if there's no more questions.
Councillor King. Just speak to the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I agree with the bike riding is one of my passions, as probably some people in this room will know. So, and I'm all about rail trails and more walking paths. We still have some missing footpath infrastructure in our small towns like Robin Vale, linking schools to sporting facilities, etc. So that is a priority, and you are. I thank people for submitting these things, and I would hope that in the not too distant future, then we might be able to come up with some sort of a plan for a rail trail through the Mallee, which would link all of our towns like Robin Vale, Manangatang, Niaware. How good would that be? On the drag strip though, it could be drag strip, like Councillor Young said, it's not a dead duck. It can be used. There's a very passionate drag club there that could be using it for other things, fundraising, car dealership drag day. There is a myriad of things that it could be used for to show that there is passion to raise some funds there and meet council halfway. So it's not a dead duck at all. There just needs to be a little bit more input and thinking outside of the quarter-mile strip that it's built on, perhaps. But all over, it's quite an easy document to read. A lot of hard work has gone into it. A lot of consultation, as much that could have happened, has gone into it. Unfortunately, like Councillor McKay said, it has been impeded a lot because of COVID. But everybody that has attended a session, has had some input, has submitted, your views are all read, they're all considered, and they're all heard. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor King.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to add to Councillor Benham's motion, the moving of the motion, I acknowledge that the consultation process wasn't ideal, given interruptions due to COVID restrictions and whatnot. I thank council officers for the job that they've done and other councillors that participated in consultation meetings, whether it was in person or mostly via Zoom, for those people that did take the opportunity to be involved, because yeah, it wasn't an easy process. Continue to encourage the community. It's great to see, you know, some submissions there. Encourage the community to continue to challenge us as a council to make sure that we stick to the plan, but also to add new things into the plan as new items on the agenda come to the front. And as Councillor McKay, sorry, I'm at mental blanks as well. As Councillor McKay mentioned, we do review this annually. So yeah, just for any community members that are interested, keep challenging us, keep pushing us to do the things that the community want us to do, because ultimately that's what we've been elected for, is to do the things that the community want us to do. I think it's also worth noting that the overall political environment is definitely changing at the moment at state level and at federal level, and more people are actually taking an interest in what is happening in our levels of government above us, and I think that we can expect that will happen more at a local level as well. So I look forward to the community being more engaged as we go forward into us executing the council plan, but also adding to the council plan as time goes on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor King. Any further speakers for the motion? Yes.
Yes,
Councillor Young.
I'd just like to comment on the bike trail and encourage people as a bit of an alternative to submissions, because I recently had a discussion with somebody about the bike trail issue who said he felt that there were people in Swan who would like to go onto a committee to talk about how the bike trail might happen, and also volunteer capacity to work on it. And I thought, well, that's something that could be sent into the council as an option to help the project, and maybe other projects as well.
Any further speakers for the motion? Any against the motion? Would you like to close the vote, Councillor?
Don't think there's any need. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Benham. Then we'll go to a vote. All those in favour? Against? Being none, carried unanimously. That being our last item on the agenda and being an unscheduled meeting, that's the only item that can be considered. I now declare the meeting closed at 12:17 p.m. Thank you, councillors. Please remain seated and silent until we disconnect, please.